Between forest nymph and werewolf, the place of man in the world according to pre-Slavic mythology. Nymph plus werewolf equals? Greetings to all! We continue investigating the Witcher's case, and the sculpting of a medallion of the Witcher's bear skull and the mystical code will come in handy. In the previous series, we depicted the man's past according to the mystical code as a constant restoration of balance due to counterbalances, nymph and werewolf. Therefore, with the characteristic signs of an attack of the common code, loss of vitality, inspiration, desire to wake up, etc., you should seek help from the excess of natural, thoughtless, vital forces embodied in the werewolf. However, such assistance can turn into its opposite, because instead of lethargy, a person can become addicted to gambling, which will not improve his general condition. It is no coincidence that the hero of the film Van Helsing, due to his transformation into a werewolf, kills not only Dracula but also his beloved. Even more dangerous is the help of common undead, to which myth advises to turn if necessary to overcome uncontrollable bursts of emotions or desires. So, coming for the witch's advice, the hero always risks turning into dinner, or rather, to identify with his desire for nothingness. However, suppressing the fire of animal fears, passions, or rage with the eyes of death is still the most dangerous way. In Sapkowski's short story The Last Wish from the Last Wish, which formed the basis of this first series of second season of The Witcher from Necklace, the beast Nivellen regains his human likeness thanks to the Braxa, Verena, but his transformation breaks his heart, because at the same time he loses his beloved, even if she's a ruthless vampire, to all but him. Not a very effective way to keep your balance, you say. If the price of defeating one monster is a triumph for another, was it worth doing it all? Of course, it's worth it, because this art needs a subtle approach. Imagine a tightrope walker. He should allow the left or right end of the pole to go too low as he falls off the rope. Therefore, the first rule of balance according to the mystical code is no final decisions. One shouldn't try to destroy the beast or the undead in oneself. Both must remain strong enough to constantly fight among themselves. No one should gain a decisive advantage. After all, this endless struggle is the internal engine of the vital forces of each person. The second rule of the art of balance reminds us that nymph and werewolf are purely symbolic constructions that give us great freedom of interpretation. Therefore, calling nymph can be in the form of simply pouring ice water, winter sports, and the practice of remote observation of one's feelings, constant self-awareness, change of habits, work or lifestyle, travel, and more. After all, the code of death is contained in a variety of vessels, which are connected only by the moment of rupture with the usual forms of the world themselves and the interaction between themselves and the world. Also, the werewolf can be represented not only by the most obvious living dog or cat, but also by less similar images, Geralt's medallion, competitive sports. Not for nothing that most teams have animal names, nicknames, or mascots, even a diet dominated by hot spicy foods. Not for nothing that vampires are believed to be afraid of garlic. Finally, the third rule of the mystical code provides a tool for maintaining balance in the form of helpers. Each one, despite the dominance of ice and fire, necessarily contains a bit of the opposite principle. Speaking in the language of the Witcher, pure representatives of the undead or werewolves are only monsters without self-consciousness. But those with whom you can talk are usually a combination of both natures. For example, although the werewolf's personality dominates in Geralt, he is also dead, because the sorcerer's mutation is the death of the person he was before being treated with mutagens. By the way, the episode with triggers being cued when Geralt takes her place in the coffin, appears in one of the versions of the Ukrainian folktale that form the basis of Oz We. Watching over the body of a murdered witch, the hero defends himself by sword and poppy, because, encountering such an obstacle, the evil force begins to count all those grains, and it lasts until morning. On the third night, the hero takes the place of a witch in her coffin, and since at dawn she finds nowhere to return, she turns into an ordinary girl. At the heart of the method is not difficult to recognize the exchange of states. The hero exchanges the death of the heroine for his own life. While describing the process of transformation a person into a sorcerer, it's not difficult to see an artistic interpretation of initiation's process interpreted as the death of one being and the emergence of another. For example, the passing of a child and the appearance of an adult in the tribe. Only after the initiation into man did the representative of traditional societies gain access to the ability to fall into a fighting trance, where he often identified himself with a wolf, bear, leopard, or another fierce and powerful beast. Conversely, although witches are dominated by the nature of the undead, which prevents them from giving birth, in the universe of The Witcher, they are capable of transformation, in particular, the dead in the homeland of Baba Yaga. In some fairy tales, take the form of Black Cat, the most popular familiar with witches and magicians. So, the key characters of myths, fairy tales, or modern fantasy epics of Tolkien, Martin, or Sapkowski are endowed with healing spells because, reading or watching their adventures on the screen, we involuntarily identify with them, thus restoring mental balance by avoiding the absorption of Nymph and Werewolf. Bilbo, without whom the world wouldn't have seen the Lord of the Rings, combined the obvious animal nature and the less clear nature of the undead because, as he tells his nephew, due to his long possession of the Ring of Power, he became as thin as butter, scraped over too much bread. After being wounded by the blade of the King's sorcerer, Frodo also became a half-ghost. Jon Snow's werewolf nature is followed by the undead essence after being killed for betraying the Night's Watch, but he miraculously returns to life. Bear in mind, this is due to the power of fire, partly the Red Priestess, but most of all the dragonfire in the blood of the Targaryens. The period of Arya Stark's ministry in the Temple of Faceless is also a transport stay in the realm of death, and she also wins over death by fire, however in somewhat paradoxical way, because she doesn't light a candle, but on the contrary extinguishes it. Ivan the Tsarevich, with his alter ego, Grey Wolf, dies at the hand of his brother, comes to life with the help of death in living water. The Cossack Charakternik has a basis of werewolf, and to some extent is a revenant of the world. Moreover, Sirko's right hand, which he commanded to take the Cossack into battle, characterizes him not only as a wolf, whose paw is a traditional mascot of military success, but also the living dead. After death, he continues to function in the world of the living. So, it doesn't matter what exactly disturbs our balance with you at the moment. Being both Nymph and Werewolf, Geralt from Rivia, with his constant two swords, will have a beneficial effect on both causes of loss of mental balance. This dual nature of the mystical helpers opens up fascinating possibilities for them. In particular, in addition to an obvious way to restore balance through the opposition of ice and fire, they can use the less obvious and, at the same time, more dangerous, to oppose the ice to the ice, to awaken the inner heat in the heart of cold. In the book, and the series, and the game, this is how Geralt returns the human likeness of the undead Striga, taking its place in the coffin. Symbolically, this adventure almost ends, for the sorcerer is no longer a symbolic death. As we can see, modern authors feel the logic of the myth and the richness of possibilities it provides no worse than the ancient myth makers. Opportunities not only for healing from one or another consequences of dominance of nymph and werewolf in the human psyche, but also for spiritual growth. About this, in the next series of our investigation, we expect feedback and likes from you and remind you that all the medallions sculpted during the investigation will be played among those who signed up for the Patreon. Perhaps this medallion will play the role of the last straw in the discovery of your witchcraft. See you!